To Dr. Regi George before that. So Dr. Regi George and his wife, Dr. Lalita Regi. So they had the dream of bringing good quality healthcare even the most remote parts of India. And to bring this dream into a reality, Dr. Regi George and his wife had moved to Sittilingi Valley in the year 1992. So this was one of the most isolated areas in Tamil Nadu at that point of time. So they had started tribal health initiative in 1992 with the valley's first hospital cum patient unit from a small hut. And over the years, they started a variety of programs in healthcare, community health, and farming. And today, tribal health initiative has spread over 33 villages in the Sittilingi Valley and benefits more than 1 lakh people. To put things into perspective, in the 1990s, when Dr. Regi George and Dr. Lalita Regi, when they had started the tribal health initiative in the Sittilingi Valley, so for a woman to have a normal cesarean section, she would have had to travel for around 100 kilometers. And the infant mortality rate was as high as 147 per thousand live births. But in a few years of tribal health initiative, they were able to bring it down to less than the national and state average. And that was the impact that they were able to leave in the area. So everyone, please put your hands up together for Dr. Regi George. The interview session will be moderated by Vineet and Maria.
നമ്മൾ പാസ്സാക്കിയില്ലായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ഇവർക്കിപ്പോൾ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂ എടുക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ലായിരുന്നു. ഇവർ തേർഡ് ഇയർ പിള്ളേരാണ്. പാസ്സാക്കിയാണ് ഞാൻ
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for agreeing to grace this occasion, joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, sir. So we'll start out by could you please tell us how you were drawn to the community and what problems you identified in the community and why Sittilingi in particular?
Okay, that's a very long journey. So I'll try and put it very shortly. At the outset, I just want to tell you that I'm not a community health person. I am a clinician. I was drawn to the community because I thought being a clinician alone will not help. That one has to very closely work with the community to actually bring good health to that. And so, all the community health I learned was from the community, not from my social preventive. So, forgive me, madam, for beginning. Okay, so just after a post-graduation, I'm actually an anesthesiologist. My wife is a gynecologist. And when we started working, we wanted to work for people who were less privileged. And that's why we ended up in a place called Gandhigram. Gandhigram is near Madurai. And it's a Gandhian institution which runs a very large hospital. It's like a mission hospital. That's where we worked. And for the 5 years where we worked, we actually were just clinicians. I trained in surgery also. So I was being a surgeon and an anesthetist. My wife is a gynecologist. And for 5 years we did nothing. We knew nothing about the community. But we realized that just being a clinician and treating illness is not what a doctor is for. Doctor is for understanding why problems occur in that community, in any community for that matter, and trying to clear those problems. And that is why we said that, okay, there must be some other way of looking at health rather than, just a patient comes in with some problem, you operate on him, he goes back and he's fine. Then he comes back again with some other problem. And you are keeping on treating problems, and it's an endless pit. You will never be able to satisfy this. If you see the attendance of hospitals, it just keeps increasing. So then what is the function of a doctor actually? And Gandhigram was another place where we first came into contact with Gandhian ideals. one of the ideals of Gandhiji was something called Gram Swaraj. Now, how many of you are familiar with the term Gram Swaraj? You raise your hands if you are familiar. Others, I'll explain. Fine. Okay. Gram Swaraj basically means Gram Swaraj. Independence, village independence, basically means self-reliance. Now, how can you bring self-reliance into a community? And we were intrigued. Okay, Gram Swaraj is fine, but will it actually work with health? And with a group of friends, we started brainstorming, and finally we said, okay, unless we go and try this out somewhere, how will we know that Gram Swaraj actually works? Will self-reliance in health work? Can a community look after itself? Especially disadvantaged communities. I'm not talking about, a large residential complex in the city. They probably look after themselves. But can tribal communities do this? Can very rural communities do this? And that's where we started our journey. So our journey is 30 years of experimentation, which is still going on. We have not reached, we've done something, but I know that there's a lot. So just to make things into perspective, I'd like to show you some photographs, if that's okay. I'm not going to bore you with the presentation. Can I have some, and when do I tell when to change? Can I stand up and talk? Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just going to walk you through a journey of 31 years. So in 1992, next one. This is just after our post-graduation, we had to make a decision. Do we end up here, or do we go and work with these people? And the decision we took was go and work with these people, because there are so many people who are going to work there. So let us make our education into use and work with these type of people. Next slide. So this is the Sittilingi Valley. We have two people in the audience who have worked with us. So in Sittilingi, they are now PGs here. So it's a very beautiful valley. It's a verdant green valley, which is between the Kalrayan Hills and the Siteri Hills. Very isolated. When we went there in 1992, there were no roads. There's one bus which comes 3 times a day. If the rains, it doesn't come. So if you have some emergency, you're finished. Okay, and but the people there were very nice. Most indigenous communities are very nice and very welcoming. So we sat down with them and talked to them and said that we were doctors and we would like to come and do something here. And they all got together and built up a small hut for us. They had no concept of doctors, they had no concept of hospitals as such. Very few of them used to go outside, because the nearest hospital at that time was 100 kilometers away. So very few people could actually afford to go there. Most of the people lie down in their huts and die. It was very normal for them. It was not something which is. And this was our. So this was our hospital for 3 years actually. 3 years, a small room, which was our labor room and operation theatre. A larger room, which was an OP and our IP. And for 3 years, we did manage to save a lot of patients, even with this. We had no electricity. We had done most of the things with a solar lamp, which some of our friends gave us. And next. We had a lot of challenges, and most of the challenges were to do with local practices. What you're seeing is a tribal place of worship. Does it look like a temple, no? Very different. But they have their own ways of worship, they have their own ways of eating, they have their own ways of marriages, some of it which still exists now. So that is one of the major things. Different beliefs. I refuse to call it superstitions, because we all have our superstitions. These are different beliefs, but they are a different belief system itself. So how do we try and put things across to a people who have a very different value system, very different belief system? So that is one of the main challenges. Next one. Yeah. So because we were thinking of self-reliance, we thought it was very important that we train the community and not take people from outside. So even now, Tribal Health Initiative, 95% of its staff are from the valley or from the surrounding hills. Only doctors come from outside. Okay, rest of the people we just train. Now people do take degrees and things and all, but others are listening. So this is my wife Lalita, who's been training local tribal girls in neonatal care, things like that, anything. So they learned, we took a group of girls and we called them health workers. We didn't call them nurses because they were one level above nurses. They needed to learn how to diagnose and treat also. It is not just nursing work. So that's why they were called health workers. Next one. So we realized that the young girls were not enough. So we trained another group of women who were at that time illiterate. We called them health auxiliaries, and they were the people in the villages who were mainly looking at maternal care, antenatal care, infant mortality, and child nutrition. Because these three were the biggest killers in our valley. So that's what we train. So here we're teaching them how to count respiration. Because that's a very easy way of finding out pneumonia in the villages. Yeah, next one. And these are our health workers now. So they are the core team for the community health work. They go to the villages, they check up all children under 5, they check up all antenatal mothers. Sometimes doctors go with them, but most of the time they are trained enough to do what doctors do. Many of them are so good that they take classes for doctors because technically they are really good. Next. Yeah, and the other thing is that one of the things we learned was educating the community is more important than treating the community. Because education, health education, especially in the villages, where you sit down at their level, and that's very important. Not sitting on a stage or sitting on a chair and the others sit on the floor. When you sit down with them, converse with them in their idiom, a lot of things actually get through. And if we are able to achieve what we have achieved, it's not because tribal hospital existed there. It's because the community was educated enough to take care of itself. The next. Okay, we also take care of vulnerable population. So we have an old age health scheme where elderly pay 500 rupees a year, 200 rupees a year, and their whole health, it's a cash free. So we brought in many innovations. If a person is vulnerable, what do they do? So, for example, all antenatal care is free, all neonatal care is free. For inpatients, it's pay what you have. You just pay what you have and go off. We have insurance systems for farmers, for elderly, for anything of these things, so that it's a cashless system. For them to access healthcare. Because money is one of the biggest obstacles for accessing health. Next. Yeah, so we have found out that formal education being mandatory to control the health of a community is an eyewash. You don't have to, because you can bring down all indices. I mean, we have not had mothers dying for the last 15 years. No mothers. We have not seen eclampsia for the last not eclampsia, maybe at least for 4 or 5 years we've not seen. But this is all just intensive community awareness, community work, very little anemia, very little undernutrition, this thing. So it is not because the doctors are there. It's because the people have taken up the responsibility of looking after the health of their community. Yeah. Next one. Yeah. So one of the things we realize is that food is one of the biggest thing in health. Good food. And so we started an organic farming collective in 2006. and we work with farmers. We have a farmers cooperative of about 700 farmers. Next one. Yeah, and the products which are done, which the organic farmers grow, are value added by women. So we have about 40 women's groups which take up value addition, for example. Our main concentration is on millets. Does anybody know what millets are? Okay, your ragi and bajra and this thing. Our whole thing is on millets. Most of our tribals eat at least one millet meal a day, and that is, I think, the biggest cause for their good health is because they eat millets. So women's groups, next one. Yeah, our farmers. We have the largest tribal farmers group in the country. So that is, and so many awards because it's. But it all started from the health point of view. It is not started from a farmer's point of view. Okay. The next one. Yeah. We have two Lombardy villages. Lombardies are gypsies who do very exquisite embroidery work. And so this is what they dress up as usually. We have two villages. Next one. Yeah, so my wife Lalita works with them. She's been working with them for the last 10 or 12 years now, and they sell their products under a brand name called Porge. Porge is very famous now. So what started with just two women who had known the art of this embroidery from their grandmothers has now become a cooperative of about 70 women. Now, what is more important is that the women make a lot of money, okay, because they make very exquisite products, some of which is hanging in Delhi in the new parliament. So it's that good. Next one. Yeah, so this is one piece which is in the National Art Gallery right now. So it's a very high-end product, but the thing that you can get rural women to do high-quality work, it is possible to do that. And the second thing is, now most of the women earn at least 8 to 10,000 rupees a month, according to the amount of work they do, and which is economic empowerment, which means good food, good education for the children. Next one. We also, some of our friends also run a small school for tribals because we feel that education, not the normal education, but education which is not forcing you to study, which is very important. So we have a small school called Tulir. Next one. So all this we feel encompasses health, watershed management. Watershed management because communities need water. Okay, waterborne diseases, good water. So 2018 we started working with water. Concerning any rainfall which falls in the valley should not go out. This was there, it goes out, but anyway, most of it actually gets trapped. Right? So right now our wells are at 10 feet. Our water table is at 10 feet. Because we have done so lot of watershed works so that people grow more food. If you are growing one crop a year, now you are growing 2 crops a year, which means you are doubling your income. Just one simple thing. Okay? And economic empowerment is very necessary for good health. This is what we realized. If you have money in your pocket, you will go to the hospital. If you have no money, you will sit. Very simple. Next one. Yeah. And once we got into watershed management, we realized that who has the money for the watershed is very expensive. Building a check dams, nothing is very expensive. And who has the money? The government has the money. And how does the government spend that money? It is through panchayats. And what are panchayats? Very corrupt bodies. They are extremely corrupt bodies they just eat up the money. And so we started a movement for governance, local governance. So there is something called Gram Sabhas. I don't know if you are aware of Gram Sabhas, where the villages can actually ask questions. But it's an almost non-existing thing because there's one very powerful politician sitting there and nobody can ask questions. So we went around the villages and started talking to people about this is your money, you have the right to question it. And we had a large movement there. And this is one of the Gram Sabhas now. There's about 500 people now. People now come, ask questions, get things done. And so that whole question of political empowerment. Political, not in the party political, but your rights. And what happened is when they found that it was not working out as well as this thing, in 2019, the Tamil Nadu government announced Panchayat election. And so our people got together and said, we'll stand. Because political parties are not listening to us. This is our village, we will stand. Next one. And so that's Madheshwari. Madheshwari is one of our senior nurses and right now the Panchayat president. And we found that governance, if you have governance in your hand, there is no limit to what health can do. Okay, now for the past 5 years, what work has, there's roads to every village, there's electricity in every village, there's water in every village, and because she is the nurse, the COVID management and all was excellent because she knows what to do. Okay? So, what I keep telling people is, forget about community health, start working in farming, start working in economy, start working in governance, start working, because these are the real change makers. The real change makers in a community are these things. So start working on all this. And as doctors, we are hesitant to step into areas which we have no clue about. That should not be. If you are clever enough to get in for your MBBS, you're clever enough to learn all these things. It's nothing, it's not rocket science, okay? Next one. Yeah. And so there are two programs where medical students and young doctors can get involved. Both of them started in Sittilingi. And this was when we started realizing that young doctors, many of the young doctors are not comfortable with so they come in with big dreams. A doctor is service to society, is doing this, that, and then they learn at the medical college that there is no service to society and things. So there are many doctors all over India who are now uncomfortable with medical college education. And so we started something called the Rural Sensitization Program, which happens right now in about 6 or 7 centers all over India. Started in Sittilingi, where we experimented with it. It's a 3-day program. The next one is in July 5, 6, 7. So Sittilingi does 2 of them. Where young medical students and young doctors come and spend 3 days in Sittilingi, the middle of a tribal area. They go to the field, spend time with tribal families, they come back, they discuss, they see how a hospital in a remote area works, how we do a lot of adjustment to keep costs low, but still give quality care. So one is RSP, next one. And the second is something called a travel fellowship. A travel fellowship, a young doctor who has finished MBBS or his post-graduation is given a small stipend and travel money to travel all over India for 1 year. Ideally spend about 3 or 4 months in an organization, so they come to know how this organization is tackling health issues, and a great change comes over them. This is for very motivated individuals. All our travel fellowship, we are running we're going to run the 5th batch now. All are full, booked out. We take 5 a year, but it is a very transformational experience for people who go through it. So these are 2 things which we offer medical students and young students on trying to view health differently. Okay, next one. Yeah, so THI knows no longer now a small hut. It is a secondary care hospital. We have an ICU, we have a theatre, we do major surgeries, we do complicated deliveries, we are a referral center to all the nearby PHCs. So by doing all this doesn't mean that you have to give up on your clinical thing also. You can do both. And both are needed. But both are needed in a balance. And that balance we have to find and do. Next one. Yeah, so when we talk of health, we always talk about public sector and private sector. Nobody talks to the people sector. So it's essential that when we practice as doctors to also think that there are people out there and it is possible for them to take charge of their health. So there is a people sector, and Tribal Health Initiative is now working with the people sector. It's not a private or public sector thing. Next one. So this is what I tell everybody. There is no one way of doing health. There are many ways of doing health. You have to find your path. There may be no path. But you have to walk and find that path. Thank you. Questions?
Yes, sir. Like in your presentation, you mentioned that there were various social issues that you had encountered. In your words, you said that there were probably many people who had different beliefs, and I'm sure you must have also encountered quacks or people who were not adequately trained medical professionals. So, how did you go about addressing this particular problem?
Yeah. So it is not easy. This is not an easy task. Somewhere along the line, we realized that quacks are also needed, especially in the rural areas, because MBBS doctors refuse to come there. Somebody has to give that healthcare, and these are provided by the quacks. So, how do we strike a balance for this? Because see, I think in 1999 or 2000, the Tamil Nadu government came heavily down on quacks, and all the quacks disappeared. Our hospital was flooded. We could not manage the rush, and that is when we realized that these people are important. Now, how do we manage this? This thing is, one is, early on we had done some training classes, especially don't reuse syringes. They are into injections. You can't do anything about it. But don't reuse syringes. Don't do these things. Even if it costs 5 rupees extra, don't worry, because now we have plastics 5 rupees. And what that did was they recognizing us as their partners, and we recognizing them as their partners. So one of the things what happens is, for example, a person has a surgery and has to be dressed. For example, a diabetic ulcer who comes and has to be dressed every day. It is foolish to keep them in the hospital. So what we would do is 2 days do some dressing here, and then go to the nearby quack, or I don't call them quacks, health provider, and that person will look after you. So now that health provider gets the recognition that the hospital has recognized me as a doctor. For them, is a big credibility. Okay? So now what that person does is, he treats a person for 2 days, doesn't get well, he says, don't, this is beyond me, go to tribal hospital. Okay, so 2 days fever, third day he'll say, please go, I can't, this is not well. So the essential thing is now developing this partnership. So now we have also developed a partnership with the local healers. I wouldn't say local healers. We have some people called Kodangis. Kodangis are shamans or witch doctors in the villages. They're in all. So we do that also. I have no clue about psychiatry. So any psychosocial, this thing, psychological thing which I don't know, I'll tell, just go to the Kodangi, go and cut a chicken and then, or a goat, and you'll get well. And now what a Kodangi thinks is, I'm being recognized by the big doctor there. So Kodangi also what he does is, if somebody comes to him, one day he'll cut a chicken, doesn't get well, he'll say, go to tribal hospital. So it is essential to develop those relationships, because all of you are health providers in a community which has different needs. And so if you are in a non-conflict mode with all these things work out, and usually to your advantage. Because they are no longer your enemy, they are your friend. Okay? So we actively promote that. We never look down on anybody, or they're all friends.
Thank you, sir. And I think that's really important to form unlikely partnerships with, as you mentioned, local healthcare providers that the community already trusts. And I also know, sir, that the Tribal Health Initiative actively involves community members, like you mentioned, sir, young girls, women, local government leaders. And I'm sure the audience would have noticed not a single picture in Sir's presentation had a single person in any photo. It was always a group of people. So how do you think community participation is important in this initiative? And say, how did you personally build community participation and bring people into the fold of healthcare delivery in Sittilingi, sir?
It also depends on how you look at communities. Now, we have a problem as doctors. Our egos are monumental, to say the least. Especially when we go and deal with disadvantaged communities. I know, you don't know. I will tell, you listen, don't ask. It's a typical teacher-student relationship in every school. Don't ask me any questions. And I think we work in schools, it doesn't work with communities. So, one of the things is to throw off your ego and interact with them as equals, which is very important, which is, I respect all your traditions, I respect all your other things. I am ready to sit down on the floor with you and talk as equals. And that the learning is a two-way process. I know something, you know something, you tell me what you know, I will tell you what I know. So this is very important. I mean, this is very important. So even when we were doing our community health work with mothers and children, we never pretended that we knew more than them, because we knew many customs which were good, which we had to promote. We knew some customs which were bad, and therefore we had to change it. That change did not come through us. So I'll tell you one very simple custom which happened. So one of the things when we were doing our figures along the years, we found that infant mortality was not coming down, or coming down not as much. And then out of this infant mortality, the biggest mortality was neonatal, and the biggest mortality was the first 30 days. Okay? So we sat down with our health auxiliaries and asked, why are babies dying in the first 30 days? So they told, and it was happening in the colder months. Sittilingi can get quite cold. So the tribal custom was that all deliveries are conducted outside the huts. It's a messy, dirty thing. So where the cattle are tied, that is where the delivery takes place, on a dirty sack. And the umbilical cord was not cut till the baby comes out. A lot of customs like that. But so that we could change to a certain extent. But the biggest thing was that the mother was not allowed to enter the house till her bleeding stops, till the lochia stops. That's about a week. And till then, they built a small thatched shelter just outside the house. Nothing there. Put a sack on the ground, and the mother and child are lying out in the cold till her lochia stops. Then only she is allowed into, because otherwise the mother is weak. Spirits can enter into her body, and that spirit can get into the house. And that was where we were losing our babies, because babies, neonatal babies, 1.5 kilos babies lying down in the cold, unprotected for a week. And so we started talking with our health auxiliaries, and we started telling them how this was not the right way, maybe we should change it. And the health auxiliaries slowly started changing the deliveries into the veranda of the house. All tribal houses are verandas, that's their living space. And then after some time, they themselves delivered their daughters inside the house. Nothing happened. But then slowly, all the others started changing. Okay, if you deliver in the house also, it's okay, nothing will happen. And so the whole custom changed. In a couple of years, the whole custom changed. Infant mortality tipped. Now, why I am telling this story is that change was not brought by us. That change was brought by the community. So, community participation in all this is very important. You can sit at their level and talk to them in their language, and slowly persuade some of them to change. Now, organic farming was a typical example. We were talking about organic farming for 2 years. 2 years, me and Lalita went to the villages almost every night talking about organic farming. Nothing happened. Everyone, they were very polite. They would sit and listen to us, nod their heads, smile. Nothing happened. 2 years of talking, and 4 farmers had said that okay, anyway, doctors are coming here, so let's try something and all. So 4 farmers did it. It was successful. Then they became the people who changed. They said, hey, you don't have to put pesticide and this thing. Things will still grow, things will still put here. And slowly it started spreading. So what we did was just gently be persuasive and kept on persisting on. Then things happen. So community participation is whether you can sit at their level and talk their language and have mutual respect. That is very important. That respect is very important. Which means you will have to leave your ego in the hospital and then go and talk to them. And yeah.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for bringing up the example of organic farming in villages that you had mentioned. Sir, how important is it to include health adjacent sectors like food security or livelihood security to bring this into the discussion of healthcare? And also, how do we involve the community as much as possible to identify their problems and implement those solutions?
Lalita and me both look at health in a very wide prism. It is not confined to the hospital or a community health program. We think those are important, but those are not the only things. And in our experience, we feel that much more has happened in health because of improved nutrition, food security, changing the diet of a population, bringing in money. See, bringing in money is not only directly like about I told, okay, I take my child to the hospital. That is not the only thing. Now, we have 4 tribal youth studying for MBBS. We have 5 people now studying in NIT. We have 3 people who are studying in NIFT, National Institute of Fashion Technology. So that is what economic importance is. Okay? My son is a journalist. So he told me, you have to give the power to dream to a population. When you are on a sustenance living, you lose your power to dream. Because you are looking for tomorrow's food. How do I get tomorrow's food? How do I not be hungry tomorrow? So you have to get out of the sustenance thing and say that I have enough money now to dream. So I will send my child to a NEET coaching center. Or I will, and now look at the next generation who come out and have these jobs. What will the next generation be? They become entirely different. So to get them out, you have to do all these things. Economic security it's so important for health. But as doctors, we don't think about this. We don't think about economic security, whereas me and Lalita are like day and night not thinking about health. We are talking about how do we bring more money into the community, how do we bring more money into the community, because we are seeing the direct things. See, if you have money and it's a illness which we cannot treat, and we say no, you have to go to Salem to a tertiary care center. Okay, we'll do it. Earlier they said no, we go back to a Hudson Dye. No, nobody says that. No. They said okay, we'll try, we'll see. So you have to bring that whole thing. So that's very important in bringing up economic security. Food security was one thing that we could not explain to them. Till COVID came. When COVID came, for a long time in tribal areas there was no rations because the ration trucks could not get inside. Okay, I think in the cities and the small towns they got rations, but in the city and everyone had food in their huts. And so that is when they realized, this is what the doctors are talking about, food security. Even if nothing comes, we have enough to eat. So these are the things which we have to keep working on for health. So the definition of health has to be redefined to include all this. Actually, in Alma Ata declaration, they did, but the capitalist forces killed Alma Ata because it was not according to them. Because people are empowered, political parties lose out. So it was basically that. So I think that is very important, that community participation in all these things, and that for good health we have to look into all these other things. Have I answered the question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And sir, a lot of these initiatives that you and ma'am have taken together seem to come from intuition. As you mentioned earlier, sir, community health or community science is a science, but a lot of your work comes from intuition. So, sir, as undergraduates and I see some postgraduates as well, so how can we build that intuition? And having done that, how do we find the tools necessary to actually take that intuition and convert it into practice?
Tricky question. Okay. Now, as young students, the first thing you have to decide is whether you want to become a doctor or whether you want to become a technician. Two things. Modern medicine or modern medical colleges teach you to be good technicians, no doubt about it. Very good technicians for that matter. You have a problem, you fix that problem. Nothing else. Orthopedician, fever comes, I don't know anything about fever, please go somewhere else. Because I am basically a technician, I know how to fix your knee. Okay, I don't know anything else. Or you go with a rash to an ophthalmologist, they tell, no, sorry, right eye, I'm okay. But anything else, I'm not okay. So the first thing as young medical students, you have to decide is whether you want to become a good technician or you want to become a good doctor. Now, being a good doctor is entirely a different. It's a human thing. It is not a technical thing. Okay? And if you look at my teachers would just look at the patient and tell you 1,000 things without even examining that patient, because they knew how when the patient walked in, what happened, this thing, or I don't know. They would just put a stethoscope to the heart and then tell you there's a mitral valve prolapse at this level or something like that. I mean, I do echoes, I can't recognize it even now. So who was a better doctor? My teachers were better doctors. All of us, our teachers were great doctors. Because they were doctors, they were not technicians. Okay, they were not good. Because I know Lalita would just examine the abdomen of a patient and tell you, okay, this child is 2.9 kilos, and when it comes out, it's 2.9 kilos. Where does that come in? I don't know that. So that is not only, it's called learned observation. You learn by observing 1,000 cases, you learn, it's called learned observation. When you work with communities, it is also more intuitive. Because we were not community health professionals and we knew nothing about community health. In fact, that is one of the subjects almost nobody likes, including me. I used to cut all my postings. But now my community health professors come and tell me, oh, you're doing such wonderful work, such wonderful community health work. See, that is intuitive because we cannot plan community intervention sitting in our rooms. Because the problems we think may not be their problems. Their problems are entirely different. I tell you, in our early years, when we were having a lot of malnourished children, so all the malnourished children, we'd admit in the hospital because they would be breastfed till 3 years old, 4 years old now. So you have to get them out. And the mother will tell, no, I can't get them out. They will fight with me, they will do this thing. So we used to admit them in the wards and then force feed them. Force cut off breast milk, force feed them this thing, then teach the mother how to make, ragi, this thing, kanji, all that stuff. And then, so for a baby, a ragi kanji is made in a small thing. You don't have to have a big pan. So one of the problems the mothers told is, when I go home, I have only one vessel. It's a big vessel. I can't make kanji in that. I can't make kanji for a 1-year-old in that. Is that a problem you would have recognized? I wouldn't have recognized it. So that is a problem which they came. So then we started buying small patrams also. So that when they go home, we give them the ragi, we give them the patram. Because without that they cannot cook. So that is how you understand community problems. So if you want to know community problems, we thought millets was their biggest problem. But actually millets was not their problem. The patram was their problem. So if you need community interventions, there is no escaping the route that you have to sit with them and talk to them. Because the problems, as you understand, is might not be their problem. You know, alcohol is a problem for us, not a problem for them. Because in a tribal community, that is usual. In all functions, we have alcohol. It's only the excess alcohol which causes a problem. So now, do I take that as a problem? No, do I go and fight against alcohol? When the community thinks it's not a problem for me, why should I listen to you? No. So that is where it comes. A lot of things also come through intuition. You watch, observe, and then you ask questions. So that is one of the things. Now, where do we get the wherewithal to handle that is? So my answer may not be very convincing, but what I feel is if you do good work, somebody above will provide you. Your job is only to do the good work. Your job is not to find out where the money is going to come, which project will come, and that is not your work. So we both of us have great faith in that. I am not a religious person, okay? So I don't believe in religion at all. But I feel that there is something which controls the universe. And it's important to just do your work. So if we want to start something, money will come from somewhere. And we'll just do it. So don't worry about all those things. It's important to identify your problems. It's important to find a solution with the community. How you find this thing is not very important.
Yes, so, sir, I'm pretty sure that many people in our audience would also want to know a lot more about your unconventional path. So, it definitely takes a lot of courage to move away from a comfortable city life and settle in a village. So, how was that experience?
I think I should ask my doctors to answer that. How did you fight Sittilingi?
That, that's a very
Because they
beautiful.
were there for 2 years. So, okay, I'll tell you. It depends on what you're looking for. Now, if you're a person who enjoys bird song, who enjoys nature, who enjoys running streams, who enjoys a temperate climate, will the city provide you with this? No. It will provide you with pollution and bad water and crowded buses and traffic jams and things like that. And we are not persons who enjoy that. We are persons who enjoy nature and who want to be there. So, in a way, if I had been working in a city, I would have been giving up anything, which I really love. So, it also depends on your choices, no? I mean, if you want to, go to KFC and, go to a bar or pub, then Sittilingi is not a place for you. But if you really enjoy all these other things, so we have had a steady supply of doctors. So it's even professionals who don't hesitate to come there. So see, we have two more gynecologists other than Lalita. We have two surgeons. We have 4 or 5 junior doctors, and I don't think they feel they are sacrificing anything because their wants are different. So, sacrificing is that it's what you believe in.
So, like adding on to the same question, you and Dr. Lalita ma'am built an entire healthcare system from the ground up. So, did that affect your family life in any way? And how did you manage to maintain a healthy work-life balance?
Okay. So one of the first things people ask is, uh, this is personal. Oh, you will go and work there, you will have no money, you will be. So money is a relative thing. I may need 100 rupees, you may need 1000 rupees, you may need 10,000 rupees. I don't know, you may need 1 lakh rupees for a comfortable living. It's very relative. It depends on your need. If your needs are more, then definitely you are. So both of us fortunately believe that we wanted to live very simple lives. So our needs were small. So we needed only little money. We are very comfortable with that. And we've never felt that we were poor in that sense. So that money thing. The second thing people are worried about is, what about your children's education? You will go and live in the middle of the jungle. So I've heard this a lot, and it has upset, or it used to upset me a lot. Because I also started feeling guilty. You, am I doing bad to my children? But we were of very strong belief that what we were doing is very right. And so both our children were homeschooled till 4th standard. We taught them. I think we did a better job than teachers. So, and after that they went to one school called Rishi Valley School. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's one of the premier schools in the country. They agreed to take the children because they thought that we needed children from that background also, from people who are working on the ground. And they waived all the fees, no fees. So I didn't have to, other than books, paste, toothbrush. I didn't have to buy anything else. They just lived. They just passed out. And one of my sons went to CMC. He did MBS, MD. Is now going to UK to do his something else, health policies. One of my sons is a journalist. He's in the UK. He's doing something. So the thing is, my essential thing is, don't worry about all these things. My essential thing is, your job is to do your work. The rest, the universe takes care. You don't worry about all these things. That is very essential. And so the young doctors who come to work with us also believe in that. And why should somebody who is a gold medalist in Karnataka University, gynecologist, come and work in our place? I don't know. So he believes in it, no? I mean, he could have got somewhere else and actually made a lot of money. But he says, no, I want to work here. So that is one thing. The work-life balance is a tricky thing. That has to be done by trial and error. It depends on how much your family needs you. So when the children are at home, work stops at 5. Work stops at 5 and then we are with them. Doing whatever, when they were small children, we were playing with them, telling stories when they're older. So that is very important, because I've seen many of my friends who are doing similar work, families collapse because they did not spend. Their work is excellent, but their families collapse because they were not spending. So that's very important that you build that in. When the children are not there, we keep on working, because it's only between both of us and we understand each other perfectly. So that doesn't hurt us. But it's very important that these things are done, the work-life balance. And also to have hobbies, okay? You have to have something outside the work. So for me, it's farming. I do very regularly, morning and night. I'm working on the soil. Or Lalitha is her art. You have to have an outside interest to take the stress off you. Because it is a stressful job, no doubt.
Yes. Building up a little bit more on the importance of tribal health. Do you think that tribal health as a subject, do you think that it gets the attention that it deserves? And how do you think that we can address any potential inadequacies that may exist in
Tribal health now is like a vote catcher. The government doesn't do much about it. It's also because it depends on. See, for example, Tamil Nadu has just 1% tribal. But their inadequacy is not 1%. It must be much more. So your budget allocated is only 1%. Your importance given is only 1%. Most political parties, when they put out statements, make it very prominent that we have allotted so many crores for tribal development or tribal health or something. That's for the papers. Nothing trickles down. It's very, very little. Tribal health is different from normal health in two or three aspects of what I can think of. One is, it's not that they don't get the same diseases, they get the same diseases. But one is accessibility. There's a big problem with accessibility. No roads, no these things. So, a pregnant woman in a small town and a pregnant woman in a tribal area are two different things, simply because of access. Second thing is economics. The third thing is belief systems. Okay. And those are very difficult things. See, just this morning we were just driving down, and then when we were passing the gate, I saw one person brought in a bike, and he had a tie around his neck. So I knew it was snake bite, but we have our people there, so I just came off. And then I went about 20 kilometers. They rang me up and told he's on the ventilator. He's gone into respiratory arrest. It is a cobra bite. He went into respiratory arrest. So then I was managing the case on the phone, saying do this, do that, do that. Anyway, now he's, after some time I get a call saying that he's self-extubated himself. He's just taken out a tube. He's okay. Now, this would not have happened 20 years back. Snake bite, they would straight away take to a local healer. And he would have died because he went into respiratory arrest. Okay? So, local belief systems, and how do you deal with these local belief systems? Now everybody in snake bite knows. And no local healer stuff for this disease. For this disease, you have to go to the hospital. Snake bite, go to the hospital. Now, so there are two other things which are very different in tribal health. And now this happens because our hospital was there. Otherwise, the nearest ventilator is 100 kilometers away. Okay, so that person would have definitely do. So one of the things which the governments have to do is to develop better secondary care hospitals at levels that they are not doing. Government's priority is primary care, tertiary care. There is no secondary care. There is no secondary care in between where somebody can, you want a hernia done, it's in the city. It's not in a small town. It's no longer there. None of the government hospitals take it to those steps. So that is the main differences, I think, in tribal health as a subject itself.
Thank you, sir. And so you were mentioning things about, it's a very emotionally intense, I would say, practice while dealing with the community so closely. So could you tell us a little bit about, the very personal issues you might have faced, maybe about, getting very close to patients, but unfortunately not being able to save them, the despondence about not being able to make a difference as fast as you would have liked, maybe some issues like that, perhaps you could throw some light on, sir.
Yeah, so it is very emotionally traumatizing when you work with communities because you develop bonds. And so I remember in the early years when somebody whom we knew, the community, came and died in the hospital, I was very upset. And I said, there's no point in getting upset because this whole valley is going to die before you die. I mean, and so then you don't know it. Till then, all the old people are going to die and they're going to come and die here. So don't get it wrong. So you have to also act after. That's a very emotionally traumatizing. Now, more traumatizing than that are instances when you are utterly helpless. And I'll tell you one instance. And so there's this person whose land is very near. We have bought some land very near. Know this chap. He's gotten. It was many years before we had an ambulance, before we had a ventilator. So he came. He had a snake bite again, a viper bite, and they took him to the local healer. Took him to this thing. Finally, he came. I told, why didn't you come before? They told, no, for snake bite, it's this particular chap, that's why they went out. But he was in acute renal failure. 1 week afterwards. And so I said, acute renal failure, I don't know, we'll try something, but I don't know whether we can treat it. And so the usual thing, LASIK, zapping, this thing is, nothing happened. No urine output, and you're slowly getting into pulmonary edema. So I told him, no, you have to go to Salem and get a dialysis done. And 2 or 3 dialysis, and the snake venom is out, and then you are clear. So he asked me, how much does the dialysis cost? 1,500 rupees. At that time it was 1,500. We thought for some time, I says, I don't have the money. I don't have so much money. So then his relatives came and told. So they're very philosophical. They said, no, his time has come, maybe we'll let him go. Because for them, that 4,500 rupees is a lot of money. And Tribal Health Initiative was not rich enough to give that. Nowadays, we just tell you go, we pay a bill if we can't manage. And so, went into pulmonary edema, and then he was gasping. And then they told, can we take him home? I told him, take him home. And then he caught my hand and told me, thank you for looking after. He knows he's going to die, but he knows I have done the maximum I have done. He caught my hand and said, Nandri, what I did for him. Because he knew my helplessness. And I sat down and cried. I didn't know anything else to do. And then I was thinking of my friends, take me for dinners in 5-star hotels, pay so much for a meal. That is emotional. When you see, so when you go out and have a meal like that, you feel, shit, if I had this money, I could have saved this man. And then you start equating everything with that. Okay, when you see people wear expensive clothes, or when you see Ambani's wedding, or I don't know, you see, God, this could have made a huge difference here. Why are they going and blowing up that? So that gets into your mind. You start comparing everything. So, yeah, it can be emotionally very upsetting.
Thank you, sir. I think that question dampened the mood considerably. So I think I'd like to open the floor for audience questions. Hopefully someone will have something more positive to ask, sir.
That was a very good exposure to me. I always love nature, and I'll definitely take it up after I finish my PG. So one thing which is very important, which I based on my exposure to nature and tribal in general, is human-animal conflict. How did you face it, and how did you mitigate human-animal conflicts?
Okay, we have not mitigated anything. That's the fair question. We don't have elephants, so that's out of the question here. Now, we do have peacocks and wild boars, and also bison. These are the main human and animal conflict. When small birds come and eat some of the crops, they're okay with it. Because after it's a very philosophical thing. After all, they also have to live. So it's okay. No, and sparrows come and eat something, or nobody minds it. They try and chase stuff, but they're not worried about that. What they're worried about is one is now peacocks. They say if 10 peacocks come, they just clean up that field. Okay, so right now what they do is they just, especially when they grow millets, in the morning they stand in the fields. It's mornings and evenings when the birds come and try and chase them off with noises and all. They lose some, but they get some. But they definitely make a loss, a lot of crops. Wild boar, they usually have this thing, they set temporary fires at the border of their fields so that wild boars don't come. That is one of the things. Similarly with bison. Bison also they have a problem because bison also, a herd of bison comes, they just clean up the field. And go. That's what they do. Right now, what people do is now people, when they have a little more money, they put up fencing. Not live fencing, but ordinary fencing. Those crisscross things. So nothing comes this side. Peacocks, we have not found an answer. Not everybody has the money to do that fencing, but some of them do. I've seen a lot of them do. First time I'm seeing fencing coming up because it's important. The government unfortunately does nothing. We've been trying to work with the government, especially for millet farming. You want to promote millets, you have to address these problems also. But they refuse to address it. So it's very difficult to do things. Wild boar, of course, many of them hunt and eat them. So their populations are slightly kept in check. See, Sittilingi is a very remote area, nobody comes and checks out. So some hunting also takes place. Peacocks, they don't eat also. Very difficult.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for the session. I just wanted to ask what are the provisions that are currently in place in the hospital for waste management, especially for biomedical waste, and also for the food provisions which are being used in the hospital? Like other than the farming and organic farming which is happening in the village, what other provisions do you get, and how does it go about?
So hospital management under the Clinical Establishment Act, there is a procedure and we follow everything. Colored bins, colored these things, and somebody comes and collects all the waste. So that is perfect. See, once you come under the Clinical Establishment Act, you have to follow all this. And there are regular checks. So this was escaping that. Food waste, we have a slight problem. I will say only slight because most tribals don't waste anything. See, for example, in Sittilingi, you don't find crows. There are no crows, which is something which you find in cities. Because crows, we don't waste. We don't waste. So there are no crows. So there is very little food waste also. In the millet unit, the whole thing is now to try and make it zero waste. Anything which comes into the gate should go out as money, not as waste. So even the husk, everything we're trying to make it into cattle feed, pellets, things and all. So that's how we manage the waste. Tribal communities are very famous for not wasting. They're very good at that. It's only very recently that maybe 10 years that you have even plastics coming in. That's a big problem. Not as big a problem as in cities, but we have that as a problem. The other good thing is that once your panchayats become very powerful, then actually the panchayat has allotted people to clean up the village. Nothing happens because the panchayat president is corrupt, therefore this thing, nothing happens. In our place, it is not like that. The village is extremely clean because if at all people put anything outside, it's immediately taken up by the city. So one of the things which RSP students come and tell is, how clean are your villages? It's extremely clean.
Thank you, sir.
I've heard a lot about you, read a lot about you. Thank you for coming. It was great listening to you. My question to you is, like, when you first went to Sittilingi, how was your experience introducing vocational education, skill development to the tribal people of Sittilingi? Your experience in introducing and the response of the tribal people towards vocational education and skill development.
Okay. That was one of our failed experiments. We do a lot of experiments. So we tried to think that if now we have a lot of temporary migration. Temporary migration is when there are no crops, you go to Tirupur or you go to Coimbatore or Chennai and go and work. So one of our things was that why go as a laborer? Why don't you train in something else? So we actually started a technology initiative where young boys, we started with boys, and boys could come and train in welding and plumbing and electrician and all sorts of things. We provided a small stipend in that you don't have to lose anything, so you get some money. It worked for some time, after some time it did not work. The main reason being that youth were impatient. See, I need a new cell phone now. I can't wait for 1 year, get training, go and earn some money and come back and all. I need to go now. So they'll go and work in Tirupur, come back with a good cell phone. See, this is they're very short term aims, or I want to buy a new bike, or I want to buy this thing. So our experience with vocational training has been very bad, except for the embroidery thing. So most of the artisans are now young girls. Young girls who have taken it up and who do it in whatever spare time they get and make money out of it.
What is your opinion about introducing it into their education in the localized tribal area, like starting vocational education right from the like 8th standard or 9th standard, something like that?
Yeah, it's a good idea, no doubt. Thing is that how much can we do? So right now, I personally am into developing the farmers cooperative. So it has come a very long way from 4 farmers, now it's no. So the whole thing about how do we make process all the things grown in that valley and sell. So right now my whole mind is into that. So we just put up a millet unit, we are putting up a rice unit, a dal unit, anything that is produced. Our whole thing is whatever is grown in the Sittilingi Valley should go outside as a product, not as chuma, as a product. Because then that's how you pump in money into the village economy. So right now, I don't have space to think about it. It's a good idea. No doubt it's a good idea. There are many good ideas, but the thing is that you're also restricted by your time and I'm also a doctor. So I have to do my clinical work also. Okay. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm Akansh, and I'm a second year student. Hearing your story was really inspirational. I'm not sure if you've heard, there's two other doctors called Rani Bhang and Abhay Bhang, and they have done the same work in Gadchiroli, Maharashtra. And I'm very surprised to see how your story resonates with them, because one of them is a gynecologist and other is both husband wife, and other is he's a physician in medicine. The thing which is why I've read the paper, they have even published in Lancet and all that. But the thing was, while I had a discussion with them on the same topic, I want to ask you a question. Sometimes the work you have done, it is not acceptable by the mass population, thinking that working into the sections of society and community service, it is not as profitable as people think. I'm not here talking about any profits or anything, but generally people think that I would not get anything out of this, or it will be like somebody else can do it. Like people tend to pass this responsibility to others. So my question to you is that what switch came into your mind that you thought that I should go into this field rather than going to, like you showed a slide which should we end up here in an emergency hospital, or should we end up here working with the people? So what was the switch which came into your mind which motivated you to take this as we say road not taken? And at the same time, the second question would be, how was the reaction of your family, friends, and did they supported you or were they opposing it? And if they were opposing, then how did you tackle it?
Very good. Okay, at the outset, Rani and Abhay are one of my heroes. I visited them, been inspired by them. So, that being said, let me just get into this. I'm not, many questions you asked, I'll try and get one by one. What is the first question?
The first question was, what switch came into your mind which motivated you to come into this?
Okay, so people ask these questions. When was this switch happening? Okay, now getting into voluntary work or working for the poor was a very gradual process, and I don't know when that switch came. Both for me and Lalita, both of us, there is no certain point that this particular event changed me. That is not there. Now, the switch of not being a clinical doctor but that there is something else came on one particular event that I relate. So I was working in Gandhigram. It's a charitable hospital. A lot of patients come. It serves a huge area. Me and Lalitha were, oh, at last we have found our life's thing. We're doing good work. And every evening, both of us used to take a walk. We'll walk, and the national highway was being, there was a road there, but it was being converted into a national highway. So a lot of construction workers, temporary construction workers who come, and they put up tents just outside the hospital. They put up tents and they were there. And the mothers and children, and playing around, and we used to go and play with the children during our walks. And then one day, and so they've been there for 1 or 2 years as this road construction was going on. And one day, one of the mothers, whom I knew fairly well, I was acquainted with, brought in her malnourished child, completely dehydrated because of diarrhea, gastroenteritis. And then, because I was an anesthetist, nobody could get feeds. They called anesthetist. I go there and I'm seeing, my gosh, it's good. And the mother was very silently crying outside her. Very silently, very dignified crying, not making a noise, very silently weeping. And I tried to get a vein. I could not do. And somehow we found a vein or to cut down or something. Finally, the child died. And struck me that Gandhigram Hospital was there for 50 years, and you have a child dying of gastroenteritis just outside the wall. Why should such a hospital exist? That was the question for me. That means our whole view of health care is not right. If somebody outside your gate where you have worked for 50 years is going to die of some preventable cause, then why are you existing there? So that is one thing which triggered the thought that this is not how healthcare should be. There is another way. That way is to educate them. These things should not happen. See, there is no diarrheal admission in Sittilingi for the past 10 years or 15 years. There is nobody who will come admitted. They all know what to do. There is no, like I used to know when we had a 10-bedded hospital, all 10 would be childhood pneumonias. Very rare to find one childhood pneumonia because they know how to tackle that. So that I feel is much more worthy of me as a doctor than opening up and closing a perforated DU. Because the knowledge which we have put into the community is one thing which will sustain. My closing a perforated DU is momentary. It does nothing to the community. I have saved one life, but I have not looked after the future generations. I feel that as doctors, the biggest gift we can give to the community is not your treating patient, but whether you can transfer your knowledge to a community, because that is the only sustainable thing. The only sustainable thing is knowledge passed on to the community. For example, in Kerala, which has been doing a fantastic work, nobody needs to tell a pregnant mother to go to the hospital. Nobody needs to. Because that has not become a personal memory, it has become a community memory. And communities have memories. So we all remember, for example, independence or the freedom struggle. Those are community memories. Why can't good health practices be community memories? And as doctors, that is our duty. Our duty is to leave behind community memories. Not that the other is not needed. That is needed, but then this is also very important. So that is one turning point. Now, Third part of the question is how do you deal with people?
So it was about support system, like how did your family and friends react?
Yeah, okay. So I was a very disobedient child, both me and in our families. We never used to listen to parents, we never used to listen. So when we took another path, they always thought that, okay, this fellow will never listen to us. So there's no point in opposing him, no? So just go along with it. So they rather tolerated me. And we are from different communities. I'm a Christian, she's a Hindu. So we had problems in marriage. But they knew that these fellows are not going to change. And as well, just go along with them. So that was that one thing. Lalita's father was very supportive. That was one great help to us. My father said, okay, you do something which makes you happy, it's fine. So that we didn't have too much of a problem. But what I tell young medical students is rather controversial is don't obey your parents here. You have your own life, no? See, obeying parents for some time is okay. But if you want to get your things done, be disobedient. Or see, this is your life. This is not your parents' life. They have lived their life. So, if you really strongly think that you want to do something, do it. And I'm not saying that people have not seen. Look at our travel fellowship people. They are coming from very, single child, girl, highly, very conservative families. And they say, no, I really want to do. So they oppose their parents, or they convince their parents, they'll come. If you really feel strongly that you want to do it, and from experience, I tell you, your parents will respect you for that. I always tell if your parents oppose you, it is not because they don't want you to do something, it's just because they love you too much. They don't want any hurt to happen to you. So they say, okay, no, don't do this, you're going to the middle of the forest, don't do that. So they feel some hurt is going to happen to you. But when they feel that you are working there, and what we do is we encourage all parents to come and visit, all our junior doctors. And once they come and see, they're very happy. And then they go to another level. They go and tell everyone, look, what noble thing my son is doing or my daughter is doing. Fantastic, they're working with child. This is the switch which happens. It is their ignorance which makes them oppose you. Or it's ignorance which makes them. So I feel that if parents come and really see what you're doing, or if you take an alternate path, if they feel that you are happy and you're doing something meaningful, they will support you.
Thank you, sir.
பஞ்செல்லாம் நம்ம மறுபடியும்